So that's kind of how my grandpa got here, is, you know, back before the Taylor Grazing Act, and they all ran cattle through this area. They would winter the cattle down in this area and out towards Toquapawash and all this area. Then in the spring they'd gather them up and head them back up towards Enterprise, and they'd summer them up there, and then they just in the fall they'd come back and forth. And you know, there's some of that history. There was one year a couple of his buddies and him, they all three had this deal that they would tell their parents that the other kids were quitting school, and so if the other kids quit, they could probably quit. So anyway, they each told their parents that they'd all quit, you know, that the other kids had quit, and that was all right. And anyway, he didn't go to school for a couple of years, and they just chased those cows. And anyway, that's what brought him to this valley. Is you know, once they kind of the grazing allotments got divided up, and it was more, you know, you just, anyway, so he chose to come here and spend his time here. He sold out. They run cattle up here on the mountain with Johnny Jensen and a lot of those guys. Some of those names are in here. I had to read those names. If I told them, I'd leave some of them out. But when he sold out to Jack Hardy in about 1946. And the way they did a lot of their business back in those days, he just says, "Hey, I've got so many cows up there on the mountain. Here's what I want for the range and the cows." And Jack never counted them. He just, if he said that's how many there were, that's how many there were. And they all trusted each other back in those days. They had there was one story here. They had a community hay baler, and it talks about how they baled hay, and they'd have, anyway, it's quite a, the way they built this valley from the way we do it today and the things they did, it's quite a different story. There's a little picture here. This is it's a picture of a team pulling a horse through the river down at Riverside. And my brother Craig, President Hafen, had a school project, and he sat down with my grandpa and he got this story from him. I'd have him come up and read it, but he probably doesn't have his glasses with him. Since I don't need glasses, I'll just go ahead and read it. Grandson Craig wrote an account of a flood for a school assignment. His account follows. Often when I have been working with my grandfather, he has told me incidents of earlier days in Mesquite. I found the one about the flood interesting. About 40 years ago, a flood for which the Virgin River is famous washed away the bridge that crossed the river at Riverside. This was the only route from Salt Lake City to Los Angeles, so something had to be done to get the traffic moving. After the flood had receded, a number of teams were hired to tow the cars across the river. A team of horses with a double tree, a clevis, and a tow chain was used. The chain was hooked to the car axle. Thomas and Vincent Levitt were the road maintainers at that time, and Grandpa Hafen received his towing job through them. Grandpa said he got the job because he had a good team. Large gray and black mares called Belle and Maud. Wood and Elmer Levitt, Raymond Abbott, and Arthur Hughes had teams also. They were glad to get this job because they received a little cash, which was very hard to come by at that time. Grandpa doesn't remember the exact wage, but he thinks it was $5 per day for man and team. So for $5 a day, they could go down and pull cars through the river.